families, working people who currently live in Santa Fe, but we want to keep them in Santa Fe. We don't want to lose them.
Did you know it's now been 16 years since the federal minimum wage went up by anything? But tonight, Santa Fe Mayor Alan Weber says that needs to change and is proposing a $2.50 increase for his city by 2027.
And it's not just about the paychecks. Mayor Weber wants to keep people living in Santa Fe and not let them get priced out. Morgan Stevens spent the day looking more at the numbers, what they add up to. So, Morgan, let's talk New Mexico versus the rest of the country.
That's right. So let's start with where things stand right now. Since 2009, the federal minimum wage has been at $7.25 an hour. And when you adjust for inflation, workers earning that federal minimum wage today are actually making 30% less than they were 14 years ago. Now, there has been slight wage increases in New Mexico, but workers here are still some of the lowest paid in the country. This is going back to 1980. This little staircase bump that you see here on the right, that's when the COVID-19 pandemic hit in the 2020 elections, where hikes and minimum wage was voted on by numerous states. Now, according to Oxfam America and the Economic Policy Institute, our state has more low-wage workers than the national average, as you can see here on this graph. So let's talk about annual earnings. In 2022, the median in New Mexico was $35,000. That's compared to $42,000 for the country, and a nearly 18% less decrease than that national average. And Santa Fe, they just raised that minimum wage like we had just spoken about. But before that, it was $15 an hour. Mayor Alan Weber wants another $2.50 by 2027 so our state capital can compete with other costly housing cities like Los Angeles and Seattle and New York City here. There's another thing to consider as well. Something called the productivity gap. So since 1980, worker productivity has grown by about 1.4% each year. However, wages have only gone up 0.6%. So in other words, workers are producing almost 3 times more, but they're not seeing the same payoff in their paychecks. Meanwhile, those top 1% earners, Social Security Administration data shows their wages have increased around $160,000 in the same time period. Mayor Weber says well-paid employees are good for a company's long-term bottom line.
There's a lot of data, a lot of experience around what happens when wages go up with workers. And the answer is less turnover, less training costs, a reduction in the time it takes to fill positions. Workers tend to be more motivated and more connected to their employer. So we think we've come up with a proposal that is well balanced, threads the needle, recognizes our overarching priority, which is keeping working people living in Santa Fe.
Let's look closer at the workforce here. The most common occupations in our state outside of home health care are those minimum wage jobs. So we're looking at fast food workers, retail salespersons, and cashiers, janitors, and so on. But the big question, will this proposal in Santa Fe start a ripple effect across New Mexico? Here in Albuquerque, the minimum wage has been $12 an hour since 2023. So only time will tell. Mayor Weber, though, says there will be 2 town hall meetings in September for folks to weigh in. Back to you.